How do you expand the sweet spot? Well, you just simply put more sugar down on the table. Nope, sorry. Dean in Prescott, Arizona is asking about the sweet spot in a two-channel high-end audio system. And he writes, I'm primarily concerned with not being able to sit where I would like to in order to take full advantage of the soundstage and imaging in my home. If I were to do so, I'd need to sit on the coffee table, and that's not going to happen. Not in most homes. Do you have any advice on equipment placement or equipment purchases which would help expand the soundstage and the imaging from the on-axis sweet spot and out further into the whole living room area? I can give you a couple of tips. Let's talk about sweet spot in the first place. If you're using stereo speakers, at the end of the day, there's going to be one spot where they work best, because stereo is an illusion that was crafted by Alan Blumlein back in the 40s. I think I've told this story before. Blumlein and his wife were at a movie theater, and this was, I think, during World War II or just before it. And they were watching the actor move across the stage. The sound system was a monophonic speaker stuck in the middle of the theater, or up in the middle of up near the stage. And as the actor walked across the stage, his voice didn't follow. When he was standing in the middle of the screen, it worked pretty well. And Blumlein turned to his wife and said, at least this is what's reported, I can do better. And he came up with the idea of stereo, which of course has a left and a right speaker, and the middle is the combination of both left and right at the same time. And that's because if I'm standing just in front of you and I'm speaking right to you, my voice is hitting, your head and spreading out to your ears in equal fashion. If I move over to the left or I move over to the right, like that, your left ear or your right ear will hear a slightly louder sound, and the phase angle will be slightly different. The delay in it'll reach the ear closest to me first, and the ear farthest away second in terms of arrival time for that sound to come. So it's a combination of arrival time and amplitude sameness between the two. So anywhere that you are in relationship to the left and right speaker is by necessity going to either get you right in the sweet spot or slightly off it. Now, what John is asking about is widening that sweet spot. Well, one thing we can do, so there are some tricks that we can do. First off, don't toe your speakers in. Most speakers have great off-axis response. What do I mean by that? Off-axis is away from the center axis of the tweeter. So the tweeter is usually partially the mid-range, but mostly the tweeter is what is controlling the short wavelength high frequencies, okay? And if you're standing right in front of it, you are on axis. You're on an equal straight line. And as you move off that axis, you then get out of the direct angle of the tweeter. If we design our speakers properly with good dispersion being how the sound moves out away from a straight laser beam, and disperses the sound in a very even, broad pattern, then we can move off axis of the speaker on a good speaker quite a ways and still have fairly even sound pressure along that axis, depending on the speaker itself. So first trick, don't toe your speakers in, and if you do, toe them in just a little bit. This allows for a broader sweet spot, because most people want to just toe those in and get that laser beam accuracy on their sweet spot. Don't do that. Second thing you can try, and this is an interesting little trick, you can tilt the speakers back just a little bit, sometimes only as much as the height of a CD case. I've often used one, maybe two CD cases. Tilt the speakers back a little bit. That'll get the on-axis response to be a little less direct and that'll help a lot with that sort of thing. Distance apart, of course, impacts the size of the sweet spot. You have to be careful there. If you get the speakers too far apart, the mid bass won't couple, and you'll start having a very thin sound to it. So you want to set the width of the speakers based on the mid bass coupling of those speakers, which is different for every speaker. So there you want to listen to the voice for the chest, and or for the robustness body of a piano. Move them too far apart, that gets kind of thin. Too close together, it's too boomy and robust. And there's a perfect spot where they are apart, and you want to focus on that without losing that. Having said that, another thing you can do, and you can't do this in every room, but you can pull them away from the wall, something I always recommend, and I always see people doing too close to the wall. So pulling it away from the wall, making sure they're not pointed at your head, and the proper distance apart will go a long way towards making a decent center image for anyone sitting on, say, the size of a couch. And that's probably about as good as you're going to get. Okay, good luck with that. Thanks.